Hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 22 of the PWP Sessions. I'm your host, Noelle Figueroa. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm happy to have back as my guest, MC Rich Vysion. We're here to discuss his new single, "And the Stigma." But before we get into the conversation, I'm going to do an introduction. Thank you so much for tuning in. So as mentioned, this is episode 22. And for those of you that are not already familiar with this podcast, the PWP Sessions or the Poets for Purpose Sessions is a podcast that I created where I interview new or established authors of poetry, rappers, or MCs. I feature a performance of their work along with an audience Q&A session at the end. I am your host, Noelle Figueroa. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I am the creator of the PWP Sessions podcast. Now, tonight's guest is returning once again is Rich Vysion, and this is his bio. We're here to discuss the release of his new single, "And the Stigma." Bronx-born, Brooklyn-based conscious rapper Rich Vysion's story is one of triumph, how a braggadocious rapper overcame mental health struggles and, along the way, created a platform that bridges the gap between music and mental health. For years, Vysion battled depression, limiting beliefs, and an onslaught of defeating barbs slung from his community. He hid his feelings behind a carefully curated veneer of chest-puffing self-confidence, a gangster persona. During the pandemic, Vysion found himself fighting for his sanity and his life when the isolation and loneliness amplified the voices of his demons within, and he hit a dark milestone. Thankfully, Vysion bounced back, and today he shares his transformative journey through his music. His thought-provoking artistry has garnered favorable comparisons to Mos Def, Talib Kweli, and Common. Though Vysion prefers to concentrate on the present and what's ahead, it is important to acknowledge he's been in the game for years and earned some prime accolades and recognition. Over the years, his work has been featured in such esteemed outlets such as XXL Magazine, Radio City TV, Zevo TV, Soul Science Radio Station, Skilly Magazine, American Pride Magazine, Flyer Magazine Site, Trend City Radio, LUTG Radio, Next Up Mixtape Volume 295, We Work in Mixtape Volume 197, and This Is 50.com. He's also earned an exclusive sponsorship from the Rude Boy clothing brand. Now back once again, here's Rich Vysion. Hey bro, welcome back to the show. Thank you for being my guest again. How you doing today?
Thank you. Great. How are you, bro?
Everything's good, man. Everything's good.
Having me.
Excellent, excellent. So congratulations on this release. I know you were looking forward to this quite some time. Why don't you tell us, tell our audience, you know, what the song is about and what was the inspiration for this record?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly. So basically, the song's been almost like a year in the making. This single was inspired by a conversation my mentor and I had during it was still the pandemic, and it was a 3 a.m. conversation that I had with my mentor at the time, and I didn't realize that it was mentally abusive until after. So basically, what happened was I was confiding in this mentor when I was getting mentally abused by someone, and the response I got wasn't something that I was receptive to at the time, because I came to the mentor for them to hold space for me, and what I got was a different reaction from the mentor, because it was such an early time in the morning. So the response that I got was a little bit of more of a projection of the anger that this person had for the time I reached out, rather than holding space for me when I couldn't hold space for myself. So this record is basically about dealing with a narcissist and overcoming that struggle of just being in a space where I desire to get the healing and clarity from this person when the person was trying to sell me on a album deal, so to speak, at the time. So it was a little bit of a crazy dynamic after the fact that this happened. And during the same week, my friend told me or showed me a movie. It's called Your Reality. It's a great gaslighting movie that really saved my life, because the week prior to speaking to the mentor of mine at the 3 a.m. when I reached out to the mentor for them to hold space for me. And I realized after the fact that I watched this movie, I was like, oh wow, like I was being mentally abused via email and everything else prior to that conversation and even afterwards. So it was very traumatic for me to be able to just share my emotions with my friend over Zoom, where she shared the video with me, and it was just like literally like shortly after the fact that I had a conversation with the mentor. I'm sorry, the mentor had basically my friend basically was telling me like, listen, this is what's happening and we need to get you to fast track this, because she held space for me. And it's such a deep topic for me because of the fact that like I almost committed suicide because of the fact that of that 3 a.m. conversation with the mentor, because I was faced with not I was not faced with the reaction that I wanted. When I was that tender, I was told that I was desperate and I was overreacting. So, it felt like my mental health was being disregarded, and I felt divided and belittled during the conversation that I had that early morning. So that was what inspired the whole song of this that dynamic between us. And it it became something that was traumatic to something that is now my biggest testimony, because of the fact that I am able to share it with other people and people connect to it when I'm performing it live, and they come up to me and just like sometimes in tears, and they're just like thanking me for speaking about mental health and my struggles. And it's a testimony now. So I'm thankful that it happened, although I didn't really want it to happen to me. I always tell myself that it happened for me, not to me, just to change my perspective of what happened.
Right. Yeah, and it's and mental health is a very important topic that's being pushed into the forefront more than ever these days. And the fact that you found the courage to even speak out from your own experiences, is it's very important, and I'm quite sure it's liberating at the same time, to be able to share that. Now, in terms of the record, like before you even started, performing it, sharing it with the public, what was like once it was finished and ready to share, like when you had the chance to like finish like the final draft or the final cut before you shared it with other people, what was that feeling like for you to get the record finished, knowing that it was descriptive of your of it was an essential description of all these feelings you were contending with? Like, what was that like to hear it finished for that first time?
To be honest, it was very liberating because of the fact that I held in so much mental baggage with all of the stuff that I was dealing with behind the scenes with a narcissist. I felt like it was very inspiring to be able to finish the record, because to be honest, I was even about to give up on the single prior to it coming out. So like I felt very empowered after it was done, to be honest with you, because the day, I kid you not, the day of the recording, the day before, actually, I backtracked to a Friday, I was told that the price was gonna go up on the studio time that I booked already a week in advance. So that took me off guard, and it really disheartened me, because like I already did so much legwork prep to actually be studio ready, rehearsal with coach, rehearsal an hour, 2 hours behind the scenes in my room to get, vocally ready for the record. And then I was told that, you know, there was gonna be a studio change, and I had to pay extra, like double what I paid for when I had already booked a session prior. So
Mhm.
it was like a lot of stuff going at me, to be honest, during the time. And I find it interesting that, even during that time, I found myself wanting to, questioning, like, okay, God, like every time I'm putting out my best foot forward, I wanted, my desire is to heal people with this music. Why is there so much coming at me at this time? Like all these obstacles and things like that, and roadblocks. And I realized it's like, okay, maybe he's testing me, you know, how bad do I want to make a difference? And I realized that even after the fact that that happened, the studio change and everything, I booked a studio last minute, and I told myself, okay, you know, maybe this was meant to be, but I'm not gonna stop myself from saving a life. So I said I have to, or I get to be in the studio this weekend, and I will make this work. I will be in the studio the next day and figure it out. And I was in the studio the next day. I got a booking last minute at a local studio to record the record. So it was just very empowering to be able to just like fight through all that and still hold the torch, to be able to stay in it longer than I thought I would have.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up. Now once you made the decision to put it out there, you started performing this particular track. What was what was the reactions or the responses you got to it? Like what have some what would it, what was some what are some what are some of the things that people have told you about it?
To be honest, people were saying that the record is very inspiring to them, and thanking me for speaking about it, because mental health is such an important topic, especially nowadays in this community, in this society. And every time I hear these comments, it's like, wow, it's because I'm not saying I never had the confidence, but I would always have these self-limiting beliefs also, that I wasn't good enough to put out music, because that was a narrative that was imposed on me also. So like you know, it's just like hearing things like that, just like, wow, really did something for me mentally. It freed me up. And a lot of people have been telling me, like, continue writing, continue speaking about these messages, go from place to place. Don't just, you know what I mean? This don't stay stagnant. Just keep on, spreading that message. And that's been very encouraging for me, getting back at it for years, not being in the game and being on a hiatus. So that's just been very, very encouraging, just to hear people just be inspired by the record and in tears. And they're just like, wow, that even last night when I had 2 gigs back to back, and when the guys came up to me, it was like, man, that had me in tears. And I'm just like, wow. And I was just performing it. So it's just like, it's just an incredible feeling, because sometimes I don't think my music will make a difference, and there's also times I do. But then it's like I see it in real life, people coming up to me and telling me these things, and it really speaks volumes of how music is so powerful, and music has the ability to save, change lives, and transform people.
Definitely, definitely. Now, for those watching that are not already familiar with you, take us back to the beginning of like when you first started writing and getting into music. Like, what was your inspirational motivation, to want to write? and being MC? Like, what were your reasons or motivations to get into the craft?
Yes, absolutely. I was honestly, I started writing when I was about like 17. So I'd say like middle school, high school is when I really developed a knack for writing. Like to be honest, I even wanted to be a journalist. That's how much I loved writing. And it's interesting that, now it just turned into like poetry and then rap. And it pretty much started being a being like interested in journal writing in general really was what sparked my inspiration to actually want to write poetry in the beginning and rap. Just the fact that I could express myself, this did something for me mentally also, and being able to share about my, you know, dark stuff, even share it to myself, because there was times when I was going through things and writing was like the best outlet for me to do so. And I just continued on. It just festered into, or expounded into, something that I thought was just like, oh, it's just about my day-to-day, journal writing of how I feel about the day, to like I'm speaking about like different things, as far as like I wasn't talking about mental health at the time. I was more like braggadocious stuff, but I just noticed that like just being able to get anything on paper was therapeutic. And I ended up like finding a hunger for it as I continued to explore my music taste. I started getting into rock, punk. I was into like punk rock. I was into like R&B, like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, like Blink 182. Like I had a mixture of artists that I listened to when I first started, and what artists I really feel like really influenced me the most would be like the conscious rappers like Mos Def, Common, and up until recently, like Nat NF, I resonate with a lot of his music because he speaks about mental health also. So his music really touches me. I love Kendrick stuff, J. Cole stuff, and yes, artists like those.
All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. Now, can you describe that moment when you made that decision to make a shift with your music? As you mentioned in your bio, at one point it's like, you were dealing with all of these negative experiences that were affecting your mental well-being. And there was a point, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was a point where you were using your music to hide from yourself in a sense, because you felt like you felt like you had to put on a persona in your music in order to deal with those issues. But what prompted the shift where you made the conscious decision that you were going to create and perform as yourself, and not feel like you had to put on the front for anyone? When did you feel liberated to be who you are and to tell your story and to tell your truth for what it really was, or what it really is rather?
Oh, wow, that's powerful. That's a great question. That's so powerful because it feels like forever I've been in this identity crisis mode. This is before the rebrand. This is when I was rich so fresh. So I lived, and I'm gonna definitely lead into your question. Like I lived, the narrative of, I gotta look better than people. I gotta be like the toughest or look the toughest. And it was just like ego driven and very braggadocious as far as like how I saw it. And it was also because I listened to things that influenced that type of material, the gangster rappers and stuff like that. And I strongly believe that really sprinkled its way into my lyrics at the time. Like when I first put out the first EP, which was Set in Stone, I had songs like Don't Tempt Me. That's something I would not write today. As funny as it sounds. And also a song that I wrote on that record was You Can Never Be Me. Again, a braggadocious record, right? And so what was the major paradigm shift for me was looking in the mirror and saying, and also being called out from people in my sphere, a couple of people that were constantly like, I'm not gonna lie, online bullying me and saying, you're not this person, stop stop trying to front, you're not this hardcore person. And I kept on hearing it so much that like I was just like numb to it. I'm like, whatever, they don't really know me. But to be honest, like I wasn't really happy with how I felt when I put on that persona. Like I wasn't happy. And when I say I wasn't happy, meaning I knew that this is not the music that God intended me to heal people and save lives. It has so much substance, so much that I've gone through that could serve someone else other than me. And I realized that like after the fact that I did the rebrand with the mentor, I realized a lot more that there was so much potential in the stuff that I was saying. It was so much substance, and I was starting getting so much validation from the class, the music class that I was in for 4 years in a row. And I started writing all these personal songs because, in that type of environment, it's like it teaches you how to write deeper songs. It teaches you how to really speak about something that strikes, you know, you, that really inspires you, and also a song that you had to wrestle for to get it out there, even out of your lips, or just get it on paper. So that really helped me realize that, okay, I have substance, and substance is so important because for me, when I lived that narrative of like the gangster rapper, I wasn't at a point where I was seeing myself for who God intended. And I started having like these revelations of like, wait a minute, this is not you. Wait a minute, why you have to front? Wait a minute, why are you chasing validation? And all these things started hitting me after the fact, that I had to do this like deep healing work within me to realize, wait a minute, why? Who am I trying to prove? I had to like really strip the ego out. And I'm like, who am I trying to prove? I'm not this person. I'm not. I'm this. And even my mentor at the time would say, like, like you're this sensitive, person, and stuff like that. And I really embraced that more and more, because it's like I really finally gave permission to myself to be that sensitive person, the person who has emotions, that's, able to show empathy towards people who are going through these dark moments. And that's what really, that was when my paradigm shift happened, was when I realized that, okay, I have something to share that is important to other people as well, and that's universal. And then I started getting into the mental health after the fact that I went through this ordeal with the mentor. So it just really transformed me. I saw myself way differently when I speak about these things, because it's healing and it's real and it's honest, it's raw, and it actually helps people. The other stuff is not helping people. It's glorifying a lifestyle that I never lived. And that's what really made me change my look on how I feel about those topics, because I'm like, I didn't live that lifestyle. So why am I speaking about a lifestyle that I never lived?
Mhm.
So that was when I had like that moment of like, okay, it was like an aha moment, like, okay, I have more clarity now of being just true to myself, because when you're true to yourself, you attract people who really are inspired to hear the message because they know it came from, like a deeper place.
Right. All right, definitely, definitely. And once you made that decision to be transparent, you know, how much of a difference has that made for you, as opposed to hiding behind a persona? Like how has that made you feel to be able to operate on a level of transparency you never experienced before?
I will even reiterate what you had mentioned about, it was just like a liberating feeling because of the fact that I never got to a place where I was comfortable being myself for so long, because I was in the persona that now I feel, okay, it's a liberating feeling to be able to just like be transparent with people and show up in a different way, because it's connecting with people, it's healing people, it's giving people permission to be honest about what they're going through. And I shared a really deep mental health piece it was like last month, and one of the girls came up to me after the fact that she was just coming in and she got to really hear my second performance because she was just getting in. And I'm not gonna lie, I was bawling, crying, because the message in the was so deep when and I was still like processing it in real time. We had a conversation after the show, and she mentioned like, well, what you did there like really touched me, because like she was experiencing like moments where she would like cut herself. So it's like we both share like, the suicide story. And it was just like, wow. Like I don't for her to be so comfortable even telling me that, it's just like, incredible in the sense of like, when you say things that are, real and transparent and raw, like there's gonna be people who will resonate with the message and will be like, well, I appreciate you for just like just sharing your story, and it opens up space for people who never really share their story up from other people, other strangers, the permission to do so, and I didn't even really know her from a hole in the wall. She just came up to me and and we were just actually just chatting back and forth, and she was touched by what I did. And that really like, did something for me mentally too. It just allowed me to feel more confident and like, okay, I do have a message to share that will impact people in a profound way. And no matter how many times I feel invalidated by some of my inner demons, so to speak, I know that people are living vicariously through my lyrics. So it's my duty to keep moving forward.
Excellent, excellent. Now we got a space tonight for you to actually perform that single for the
Yeah.
first time for our podcast audience
Mm.
tonight. Are you ready? Are you ready to throw
Yeah.
down?
Yeah.
All right, awesome,
Absolutely.
awesome. So at this time,
Uh,
we're going to shift gears, and um this time, ladies and gentlemen, Rich Vision is going to take the mic and he'll be performing his brand new single, End the Stigma. So at this time, Rich, the floor is yours.
right. Should probably get this thing hooked up with the mic. So I don't know. If I should get my mic hooked up. All right. So it's a privilege and honor to be doing an a cappella version of my single and the stigma. All right. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. Victim, all I know. Yes, you told me yes to let it go. As cliche when you never bore my cross, you know. Instead of a dark woman, no keen sight. 2 seconds on my deathbed, contemplated suicide, stared at the white ceiling. While I'm still here for, I meant to squander money from someone was revered. Tears from my eyes that I couldn't conceal, wasn't cognizant that mental abuse was real. Refuse to be a statistic, I'm just being realistic. I'm done pointing fingers. I escaped this mental prison and I had risen from the ashes and I'm choosing to move past this. I refuse to be stagnant, no longer a victim to my sadness. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. I refused to give up on the life that I had. No noose will come between the purpose God had for my life to be that hope for society and remind me, yes, while I'm still breathing. I stopped calling myself worthless. I know my worth. Much a doormat. I rose up from under dirt. I have too many lives to save. I refuse to quit. Reaching out was not a sign of weakness. My mindset ain't for lease. My friend, yes, was my reason to continue inner work which led to spiritual healing. To remind me I'm just way too worthy to compromise. To keep my head high, yes, on my darkest night. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life, yeah, and change the picture. Fighting for misfits, fighting for a cause, fighting statistics, fighting inner scars, fighting for misfits, fighting for a cause, fighting statistics, fighting inner scars, fighting for misfits, fighting for a cause, fighting statistics, fighting inner scars, fighting for misfits, fighting for a cause, fighting statistics, fighting inner scars. Shaming myself for therapy was beneath me. Hating myself, yes, that never saved me. Cling onto faith in the mirror, I am changed. Either leave my mark or suicide with my faith. Every therapy session built a foundation to heal a future generation. Took a dose of patience and meditation. Healing resides in the darkest of places, and I embraced it. Yes, I'm not a victim to my circumstances. Unlock this mental prison, freed from under your trances. I would never outsource is my happiness, and I refuse to give my power to a narcissist. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life here and change the picture. And the stigma, and the stigma. Freedom starts when I end the stigma, and the stigma, and the stigma. Take back my life here and change the picture.
Yes, 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 yes. Powerful message, bro. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rich Vision performing his new song, End the Stigma. Powerful message, bro. Thank you so much for coming through and sharing that. There's lots to take in from that.
Thank you.
Lots to take in from that. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now we're going to shift gears and move into the Q&A portion, because there's a lot of meat to pull from that track alone. And I have very prominent question in regards to mental health and faith. You know, there's a huge misconception within the faith community that, you know, if you believe in God, that, you know, why do you need a therapist? You know, you don't need therapy. You know, God should be enough. What do you say to those people that hold that misconception that, you know, that just because you're a believer that you don't need therapy? Like, what do you say to those who have that idea?
Wow, that's a loaded question, but that's honestly a good question because, wow, wow, that's just like one of those questions. It's like it's difficult to answer. I will say for me, even as someone who is, I'm not gonna lie, I don't consider myself religious per se. I do believe in God. I realized that, you know, if I didn't get help I needed, no, I'm sorry. If I didn't get the help I deserved, I wouldn't be here today. And that's the God honest truth. Like, I've been suicidal for quite a few number of times in my life. And I had either people who were convinced me not to, or just God convinced me not to. And, you know, I ended up taking therapy during the pandemic because of the fact, like, you know, my sister was like, you know, you need to get the help. And, you know, because, you know, I was like mentally like scatterbrained. I was just like, you know, I was angry, I was sad, like I could even honestly control my emotions. And, you know, being in a space where I have to be around people, you know, that just doesn't, you know what I mean? That doesn't really fly. You know what I mean? You just have to be able to control your emotions. Um, and when you're in a public space, unfortunately, right? So eh, the thing about it, I will say, is the fact that everyone is dealing with stuff behind the scenes. They just don't really express it towards us, people like us, right? Because it's traumatic, right? So when it comes to therapy, I feel like this is from experience. It helped me a lot because I had the victim's mentality when I went through the issues with the teacher, the mentor. So, and I started thinking of me as someone who, you know, the therapist was saying I had irrational thinking. I wanted to only think one way. So that really helped me because I'm like, okay, that was a tough pill to swallow, you know, but it was stuff that, like, okay, that at the time, like, okay, this was key to hearing that, because like no one else is gonna tell me that, really. You know what I mean? That I was thinking irrationally. I'm just in my own head thinking, okay, it's supposed to be this way. This person's supposed to think that way. I'm supposed to think this way, and it's just like this one way street. And like, it's a dynamic. So it goes two ways, right? So when it comes to like therapy, and and also being a believer, it's like God puts people in spaces for a reason. Like, even the person who I was confiding in over a Zoom call, I'm not gonna lie, she became my therapist, sharing this movie with me that saved my life, right? So, it doesn't have to be, a therapist per se. It's just anyone who holds space for you when you feel like you're not enough, or you feel like you're on that verge of like, okay, I'm not really good mentally. I need someone to like hold space for me. It's like, don't be ashamed of that. That's the thing. A lot of people carry this shame and this guilt, almost like a badge of honor. Like, like, oh, I shouldn't be seeing a therapist because like people are gonna think I'm either weird or not, normal. I'm like, it's not even about that. It's more like, you're worth it, and recognizing that you're worth it to get the help that you deserve, right? So you could live longer, be here for people that, that you were meant to impact. So that's what I will say, is the fact that it's so important to, and I always say this a lot because it goes without saying, because I feel like a lot of people think it's like a cliche, and it's not. There's, you know, even in the song, I speak about the statistics of the suicide rates, even during 1999 to 2021. And that was just a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
So it's just like, it's still happening. So it's like, when we don't confide in people, that's what happens. You know what I mean? It's either, that's what I'm saying. So it's basically like just two options, like, it's get the help you deserve, or, you know, or the latter, right? The other end of the spectrum, where it's like, you don't want to go that route, because it's never a pretty place to be in, at all. And I don't condone it at all. So if we have resources that are in place, especially now, to be able to, it's so accessible now, where before, maybe a year or ago, it wasn't that accessible. These resources were just like via Zoom, or even like these other platforms that allow people to like speak virtually. It don't have to be through Zoom, they have other apps as well, but it's just in general, we got so advanced in our technology now, that I'm so thankful for,
Mhm.
that I'm like, whoa, like, it's so easy now to just have someone like on the screen. You don't
Right,
even have to be there in person. So it's just like, it just removes the barrier, right?
right.
Of like getting the help, because it's like, and there's numbers, there's a lot of resources. 988, you know,
Mhm.
988, mental health awareness, suicide prevention number. It's just like, it's in the palm of our hands. But if we don't take back our power, you know, this will continue to be a broken society, if we don't get the help that we deserve, because people are going to look at like us as like ashamed of sharing our stories. And then when we bottle everything inside and festers, it's not a pretty place. And it does lead to suicide, and it does lead to a broken home, and broken families. And what we want to do with in life is prevent these things from happening in general. So that's why we seek therapy, right?
Mhm.
To prevent, it acts as a preventative to
Right,
things like suicide, which
right.
is very important.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And you point out two important things. The one, the fact that there's no shame in asking for help, and the fact that there are resources available. Like in general, you know, we have to understand that help is available if we just make that conscious decision to get the help. And in terms of those that are believers seeking help, we have to remember that scripture says that faith without works is dead. Yes, we know that God can do everything and anything, but at the same time, he makes provision for us to get what we need. God still requires action on our part to do what needs to be done. We do our part and God does the rest. So when we make a decision to, like, when we see that we are in need of help, that when we do need counseling, when we do need therapy, and we make it that when we make that conscious decision to get the help, God makes provision to surround us with the people and the resources that are needed in order for you to get healing, mental healing.
Mm,
So in that regard, in terms of believers, it's important to know that yes, we are believers. Yes, we believe God can do anything, but at the same time, God requires us to do our part. And there's no shame
mm,
in asking for help. There's no shame in saying that you're struggling and that you have a need. And it's so
mm,
important to maintain that level of transparency, you know, because we don't come into this world knowing everything. You know, we don't come into this world perfect. You know, we all have our struggles that we're contending with. And there's no shame in saying that, you know what, I'm in need of help. You know, can you help me? There's no shame in asking for help. So that's
Mm,
important to know as well. And it's a blessing to know that you made that decision to get help, and you began to see the transformation in your own life, and in turn, which is impacting others, you know, which is helping you, you know, engage in operating in your purpose. You know, your story is helping someone else, and it's being a blessing to someone else. So, you know, I thank you for your transparency and for your willingness to be open with your struggles. And, you know, I truly believe that God is moving in your life, not only healing you, but as you share your story, others are being healed at the same time, which is just as important and valid.
mm, mm. Absolutely. And I just want to take a pause there because, I want to piggyback off that, like, about the shame, because I went to a I went to a mental health concert that they were having last year at, I believe it was Central Park. It was one of those parks, but in New York, and it was it really, really, like, it really disheartened me when and I don't know the name of the artist. I know he's part of a band, Linkin Park. I believe it was the main singer of
Mhm.
Linkin Park, and his wife was there, and she spoke up at the podium, and I remember her saying, she was just like distraught, like in tears, because like she had just lost her husband, to suicide. And I'm just like, wow. And she mentioned, like, oh, like, she wished that there were resources. Oh, I'm getting choked up. She wished that there was resources like that event that was, catered towards mental health, and has so many of these little resources, inside of that one concert, of that, she said that it would have been a preventative from, her husband, committing suicide, and then they had kids. So it just, it disheartens me, that people are struggling, even celebrities, it's real. Mental health, awareness is such a real thing, it's universal, it's not just a month. And, and it deserves to be, spoken upon, and, and on all platforms, because it's like, again, it's like, it's very sad, that, people are turning to suicide as, as a way out, as an escape for them. And it's, just disheartening. And for me, it's just like, and that gives me more of a fire to, like, okay, continue to share my message, because it's like, if I could empower people to take the high road, and not commit suicide, and be like, okay, hold on longer, because there is hope, and be that beacon of light for them, then for me, that's a job, well done. And it's, if I could parade more people to continue to, like, spread that awareness too. It's like we have an army of people who are fighting for mental health awareness, and, and in turn, and, and also being able to save many more lives, and continue to show people a different way, a different way.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. As we close out tonight, can you just are you able to reference one or two mental health resources that you would recommend, or that you're aware of, that you could share with our audience?
Oh, absolutely. The one that I mentioned, are people able to see the chat when we're out of this as well, or am I
Yeah.
to write it in the chat?
Mhm.
Okay, because I'll I'll link the movie, the film Your Reality, because that one really was key as far as like the gaslighting things. In reality, gaslighting. Okay, so I'll link the gaslighting film and then okay. So I'll link the gaslighting. So that one's on gaslighting. And honestly, 988, the suicide prevention number. Uh yeah, that's just, that that movie is so powerful when you realize that narcissism is real, and just in general, call the hotline if you're feeling like like you're at that point. But that's just, yeah, that was a game changer for me. That really spoke volumes to me.
Awesome, awesome. I do thank you, and my audience thanks you for coming through and sharing your story and your transparency. Your single is released. Once again, congratulations on the release. Do you have any events or performances or other projects that you would like to note to our audience before we close?
Yes, I have quite a number of events I already have lined up for July. I have one more in Harlem this coming Thursday. I have quite a few shows in July. I have 4 shows in July, promoting the single, one at Parkside Lounge, one at Secret Port. There are Brooklyn, Astoria events. I have, so if you just, I'll link my website also so we could stay connected,
Excellent.
so people could really dive into the movement, and also being able to connect more of a deeper level and share some of the backstories to my singles, some studio sessions and things like that. I also am working towards I actually did record my second single this past weekend, so I'm excited for that to be rolling out within the next couple of months as well. Same concept, mental health, and definitely something that I look forward to sharing as well.
Awesome, man. Well, you got big things going on. You've accomplished a lot. A lot, and I congratulate you, and I encourage you to keep telling your story. Keep telling your story. Now, as we close out, there's just one more thing I like to do, and that is to say thank you. First and foremost, Rich Vision, thank you for coming through. Awesome single, powerful message in that song. And I'm sure as you continue to share it, as you already have, it's going to have quite an impact. It's going to make a difference. I'm sure it already has made a difference. But I wish you much success in your upcoming endeavors and future endeavors. Continue to be transparent, continue to tell your story. And as you continue to heal, I'm sure your words will bring healing to other people without question. You can, for those of you not already connected, you can follow Poets with Purpose and the PWP sessions on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as Clubhouse. This is the last episode of season 2. The PWP sessions will be taking a break for the summertime. So I do thank you all for tuning in, and I thank you all for your support of this podcast. One other event coming up is July 29th. I will be celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Poets with Purpose Poetry Workshop. I have an awesome lineup of poets. The event will be virtual, taking place on Zoom. For information, you can go to Poets with Purpose. That's PWP 5th anniversary.eventbrite.com for all information pertaining to this event. Tickets are $7, and for those wishing to be a vendor, the vendor fee is $10. And Zoom link will be provided upon purchase of ticket. For more information about Poets with Purpose and the PWP sessions, you can call 646-372-6230 or email poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. All logos and flyers were designed by the awesome team at Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram at Eclipse Graphics, at @Eclipse Graphics NY. And lastly, for those interested in making a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, Cash App, $Anointed Pen, or through Zelly, utilizing my phone number. And that is a wrap, ladies and gentlemen, for season 2, episode 22. Rich Vision, thank you, bro, once again for coming through.
Thank you, a pleasure. Thank you
Awesome
for having me.
lyrics, powerful message. Continue to be blessed and be a blessing. Thank you to my audience. This episode will be uploaded to the Pause for a Purpose YouTube channel within the next hour or so. So be on the lookout for that. So you'll be able to share it with your social media channels once it's uploaded. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Rich Vision, for coming through. Have a good night and God bless. Thank you.
Good night, bro.